Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we have Joseph Gress, who will be presenting to us today on NAV Upgrades 101. And we just have a few housekeeping tips for you today. First of all, we do record all of our webinars, so this will be available later this week on our website for you to review again or share with any of your colleagues. And we do ask that if you have any questions, please go ahead and type them into the questions box, and we will get them called out and answered toward the end of our webinar. And so now I will turn it over to Joseph, and he will start our presentation.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the NAV Upgrades 101 webinar. I'm very happy to be presenting this information for you. We have a relatively large group today, so I look forward to any questions and comments that you have along the way. So as kind of an introduction, I've kind of used the Farmers Insurance slogan, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. And at Innovia Consulting, we can say the same thing when it comes to Dynamics NAV upgrades. In today's webinar, I'm going to go through several critical steps in our upgrade process at Innovia Consulting. These upgrade steps include a pre-upgrade database analysis, merging any add-ons and modifications into the new version of Dynamics NAV, the data upgrade process, and I'll be talking more about all of these in detail, and finally testing and going live. We start almost every upgrade with a pre-upgrade database analysis. We need to do this because every upgrade is different. Some upgrades are relatively simple and we can complete the entire upgrade in a week or so. Other upgrades are complex and can take 6 months to a year or more from when we start the upgrade until we are ready to go live. The pre-upgrade database analysis that we do provides a roadmap for the work that we're doing in the upgrade, and that's especially important in these more complex upgrades. And this upgrade analysis identifies factors that affect the complexity of the upgrade and provide us with kind of information that we use as we're doing the upgrade. So in this pre-upgrade database analysis, it identifies a number of factors, and these include the number of modifications, any add-ons, and I'll be going through these with an example, but the number of companies, the size of the companies, the database size, the number of steps in the upgrade, whether we can just go from your current version to the new version, or sometimes if it's a really old version, you might have to upgrade to NAV 2009 and then to NAV 2013, maybe to 2013 R2 before we get to the new version. We identify any classic reports or forms or data ports that have to be converted to the role tailored. And we also look at any challenges related to code refactoring. So let me just kind of briefly go through an example of what this upgrade data assessment looks like. It's an Excel spreadsheet. It includes a number of tabs. I'm only going to go through about 3 or 4 of these tabs. So the first tab is an overview. It tells us about how large the database is. So this example is at 225 gigabytes. It has 2 companies. We're upgrading from 2009 SP1 to 2017. So this provides just a really good overview of the general information. But then let's look at some of these other tabs. So the reports tab, if it's from 2009 or earlier, we need to look at any reports that were modified and determine what are we going to do. And so we have an action item for each report. Are we going to use the stock version? Are we going to upgrade the report to the new version? Or for custom reports, some of these are no longer needed, were temporary, and so we would remove those. Other ones we would upgrade. So we look at each report and determine what we're going to do with each of them. Similarly, for add-ons, some of our clients have a number of different add-ons, such as ChargeLogix, Altus, Lanham, and so we identify all of the add-ons that are in your current database and make a decision. What are we going to do? Are you currently using that? If not, we will remove it from the upgrade database. If you're using it, normally we would want to upgrade it to the new version. And just as Dynamics NAV comes out with new versions, but most of the add-on vendors also come out with a new version. They improve their product, they make it work with the new version. And so we obtain the new version, the latest version, with all of their enhancements, and use those. So that's the add-ons tab. I'll just briefly mention this version analysis. We go through and look at all of the version tags, and I'll say more about the version tags, but this is how we determine stuff that's in your database that either needs to be upgraded, removed, or handled in some way. So anyway, that's our upgrade database assessment, and that's something we do at the beginning. We review that with you before we proceed with the upgrade, so that we're all on the same page. So after the upgrade assessment, then the next step is to merge any of the customer's modifications and also the add-ons in with the standard code for the new Dynamics NAV version. And that requires 3 sets of objects. So these are the original code. This is both the original base Dynamics NAV code. So if your client version was a NAV 2009 SP1, it's the 2009 SP1 unmodified code. But into that code, we need to merge in any add-ons that you have, and that's what we call the original. And then the modified is the code that's currently in your current live NAV database. In the example I gave for 2009 SP1, but whatever you're currently running. So that includes the Dynamics NAV code, that includes any add-ons, but it also includes all of the modifications that are in your live database. Now, what we're going to do, and we have an automated process, I'll briefly go through that, but the process compares that modified code with the original code, and any differences are your modifications, and we then apply those differences to the target database. So that's the base Dynamics NAV code for the new version, plus any add-ons that you have. And to do that, in the old days, we used to do that manually, and that was a tedious process. It's still not a simple process, but it's now a lot simpler than it was before. And specifically, we use PowerShell commandlets that Microsoft has provided us to automate that merge. And there's 3 of them that we use. And so I will go through an example of that. And so now let me minimize this. And let's see, I'll need to switch to first to File Explorer and get to my folder where I have this. So this is a folder that I've prepared ahead of time. So I mentioned we have these 3 files, original, modified, and target. So those are text files that contain the original code for your live database, the modified code. Then we'll compare those 2 and apply to the difference to the target. So we're going to do this with this PowerShell script, and I've done a few of the steps ahead of time. So this, we use this, a script similar to this for almost every upgrade that we do. And this involves several steps. So I'm going to just kind of briefly talk about the steps as I do them. So the first step I'm going to run is just some kind of setup, and it also is going to create a function to handle the NAV version list. What we've learned is that the PowerShell commandlets provided by Microsoft don't handle the version lists the way that we like them to be handled. And so we use one that we borrowed from Eric Walters. So I'm going to execute this part of this PowerShell script. Now, this webinar, I won't have time to explain PowerShell in detail to you, but it's a great way to automate this upgrade process or parts of it. So I've just ran these steps that are just kind of setup steps. I've already run the steps that split out the original and modified files into separate files for each object. I'm now going to do that for the target. And that will take about a minute to run. So it reads through the target file. And once it reads that in, then it creates separate files for each object. So for the there's 5,000 objects, so the sales header table, the sales line table, the sales posting code unit, all 5,192, it's going to write them out as separate files. And so once that is done, then we're going to run the lines 58 and 59 that will compare each of those objects, the modified with the original, and apply that to the target. So let me run that step, and that will also take a couple minutes to run here. So what it's doing now, it's reading probably the original file. After doing that, it will read in the modified file, and let me get my other screen set up here the way I like it. I'll get back to that later. I may have lost my share. So I'm not paying attention. I think this is reading in the modified file. It has 6,000 records. And again, this will take 2 or 3 minutes to read in those files. And then, so now it's reading in the target file. Once it's read that in, it will look for any differences between the original and modified and apply them to the target. So we'll see that. So I'm looking at this section here that says reading files. So now it's comparing the objects and between the modified and original. And now it found that there were 395 where there were differences. And so it's now updating the target object, applying those differences to the target object. And now it's paused for a moment. I guess it's thinking. And now it's writing the merge result file. So it's copying any original objects that were not modified. It's copying any modified objects that were not part of the original set of objects. And it's also copying over the merged files. And at the very end, it will provide a summary of what it did. And what we'll see is that it handles most of the conflicts automatically. So here's that summary. Now this is maybe a little bit deceptive. This was an upgrade from one build to another build in the same version. And if we were going, let's say, from NAV 2009 to NAV 2017, it would not do quite as well as this. But here it says, okay, there were 6,853 objects in our modified database. Of those 369, it was able to successfully merge with any changes from the target into the result. There were 26 conflicts that it was only able to handle partially. So we'll have to do those manually. There were 1,661 objects that were in modified, but not in target. There weren't any that were deleted, and there were none that failed. So it said there were 33 conflicts that it did not handle. So it handled 99% of the changes. So that simplifies my life significantly, but we still need to handle those conflicts. And our PowerShell script has a step that that we use for doing that. What this does is, well, let me just run it and you can see what it does. It takes those objects where there were conflicts and opens them up in into why is this taking so long? Oh, this is handling the merge list. Sorry, I was a step ahead of myself. So I had mentioned that the standard PowerShell script did not handle the version list very well. Let me say just a little bit about that, because that's kind of an important point. The version list, and this is something that the developers pay close attention to, this version list. The end users, maybe not so much. But this version list gives us a lot of information. So I'm going to look at this customer version list as an example in this sample database. So in this one, the first part, so the things that are separated by commas are separate elements in this version list. So the first element is NAV W1 10.00.00.16585. So the NAV W1 says that's the Microsoft worldwide version, NAV W1, and then 10.0 is NAV 2017, and then 0.00.16585 says that is build 16585 for that object. As you may know, Microsoft has started releasing new builds every month for each version that they are maintaining. And we encourage our users to periodically merge those in, or have us merge them in, because that helps us helps resolve issues that Microsoft resolved in your live database. So in this case, they were running it was NAV 10.0 build 16585, and then the second one is NAV NA 10.0 build 16585. That's the North American localization. Then the next one is SEO.60.07. That is SEO.60.07 is Lanham eShip and EDI, and that's saying it's version 60.07 of that object. Then UBP is Lanham Advanced Forecasting, so that's version 2.88. The next one is EFT and the version of that, so that is Charge Logic. And then the last one is INVC. That's a version tag that we at Innovia Consulting put on to indicate that we have modified that object. So what this step is doing is creating the right version tag for the new version. And that's all I will say about that, but that is an important step. Now this next step I'm going to skip for today. It just copies all of the merged files to the merge result folder. Now this next step is the step for handling the manual merge where there are conflicts. And so when I run that step, that is going to open that all of the conflicts up in Beyond Compare, and that will take a minute or two. There were about 25 or 30 objects, I think. So we'll have to let this come across. And I'm just going to kind of arbitrarily choose one of these, table 7311. So each of these tabs, these are the parts that I still have to do manually. These are conflicts that the automated merge was not able to handle. And so what I do is first I have to do that version list manually. So what I usually do is take the new version list and then I bring in, and I'm not even sure what this is here, but I add that to the new version tag. So that's the first conflict that I handled. So this Beyond Compare tool, let me say a little bit more about what we're looking at here. So in the middle, we have the original code. On the left side, we have the modified code. And on the right, we have the target code. And so in the original, between bin.calcfields adjustment bin and bin.testfield adjustment bin, in the modified, there was a line of code added. And in the target, there was a different line of code added. And so that's a conflict that we have to figure out what to do with. So what I might do is take the target, but then add on. So I might say and then add in what we were saying here. So not WDM entry. Copy that and put that here. Maybe looking in parentheses. So I don't guarantee that that's right, but that's what we do with this manual process. So we have to do that for each conflict. Then once we're done, we save the merged version, and then that's what we'll bring into the upgraded database. Okay, so let me see if I can get back to my slideshow here. So that, and maybe I ended it, so let me continue it from the current slide. I think I may have inadvertently closed it. So I already talked about the PowerShell script to handle the version list, and went through the example and using, so we went through all of that. So the next step is doing the data upgrade. So again, there's kind of 3 or 4 steps to the upgrade. So the first step was the pre-upgrade database analysis. The second step was merging in any modifications from that have been made in your current live database, merging those into the new version of NAV, as well as merging in any add-ons. The next step is doing the data upgrade. And so that's what I'll talk about now. This data upgrade, what that does, that involves several pieces. And this is a process that Microsoft has provided. And then we also use processes that many of the add-on vendors have also provided, because between the original version and the new version, Microsoft has added some new tables. They've added some new fields. They've gotten rid of some fields, but in the process, they have a process that they have provided that that transforms the data in the old tables and old fields that are no longer used, but transforms them into the new fields and new tables that are used. And so that's what this data upgrade process does. Now, when we do this at Innovia, it's our policy to always use new servers for the new version. A new SQL server and a new NAV service tier server. And the reason for that, it allows us to start with a clean slate. So the servers that we start with in our new version, they don't have a lot of stuff installed on them that we no longer use. We like these servers to be as clean as possible, and we like those servers to be, we like to have separate servers for SQL Server and the NAV service tier. Everything runs better, and things just run optimally if we work that way. And we then use the Microsoft upgrade checklist. Hopefully if I click on this, that will bring that checklist up. So this is a checklist that Microsoft has provided, and I'm not going to go through this in detail, but this is the steps that we follow in upgrading the data to a new version. And so you can see on the right side, there's a large number of steps, right? About 20 steps. So prepare the old database, back up the old database, delete all the objects from the old database, except tables, and so on. So these are kind of the steps that we follow. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but I just want to emphasize that it's important to pay attention to the fine print in those instructions. And a couple of places where this is especially important. One is a few versions back, Microsoft changed how they handled what they used to call kits, what they now call assemblies. And so it's important to pay attention to that information. Another example, and this is going back about 10 years or 12 years, Microsoft changed, rewrote how jobs were designed. And so we have to pay a special attention to those if you're upgrading from that far back. We always do a test upgrade, and we make detailed notes during the test upgrade. And kind of while we're doing that, we make a checklist that we're going to follow when we do the live upgrade. And as part of that, we need to make certain that we have enough time for the live upgrade. So kind of jumping ahead a step, once we've completed all the testing, we'll schedule the live upgrade. Sometimes that will be done in the evening, overnight. If it's a between versions upgrade, most of the time that will be done over the weekend. We'll start sometime on Friday afternoon and follow that data upgrade process on your live database and do some testing on that and then go live. And we need to make certain that we have enough time to do that live upgrade over the weekend. And as an example, an upgrade, we might find during our testing that, it's going to take, maybe 48 hours to just do the test upgrade if everything works according to plan. Well, that doesn't leave us much time if we run into issues. So then if that's a problem, what we have to do is figure out, okay, what can we do to make that run faster? Can we add more memory, use faster hard drives? Can we streamline the upgrade process? So that's critically important. And then I had already mentioned about creating and then following that custom checklist that we provide, that we do for the live data upgrade. So the next step is doing the testing. So again, let me remember the steps. So we do the pre-upgrade checklist, or the pre-upgrade database analysis. Then we do the code merge. The next step was the data upgrade, do a test data upgrade. Once we've completed that test upgrade, then we do testing. And this is critically important. And there's actually several steps to that. The first step is at Innovia, we have our application consultants go through an upgrade test checklist. So in that, we create a new item, make sure we don't get an error, that new item looks kind of like we expect. We create a sales order. We post that sales order. We run critical reports. So we have a checklist that we go through. And then we have user acceptance testing. That's where we have our clients go through their process and make sure everything works according to everything that they do that's critical works for them, that we didn't miss anything. Once our users have completed that acceptance testing and said, yes, it's ready to go, then we schedule the live database upgrade, and then we do it. We start the live database upgrade normally on a Friday afternoon. We complete the data upgrade. Usually it's Saturday morning, and then we have another round of testing. At Innovia, we repeat that checklist that upgrade test checklist that we had, make sure everything still works in the new live database. We have our users get in on Saturday afternoon and do the same thing. Now, it's essential that we have a disaster recovery plan. Sometimes, it's very rare, but sometimes we come across something either in Innovia's testing or the user testing that we didn't see in our original testing, and we determine we can't use the new version. We can't get it fixed by Monday morning. So we need to be able to go back to the original version and then repeat the go live later. But assuming things went according to plan, and most of the time they do, then we go live on the new Dynamics NAV version on Monday morning. And normally at that time at Innovia, we have one of our, usually if I'm the developer that did it or whichever developer did the upgrade, they don't have anything else planned. I don't have anything else planned Monday morning. We also usually have an application consultant. Sometimes they go on site. Most of the time now, they're just have the day blocked off in case, or just to deal with any issues that you run into. We also have a technical consultant on call the whole weekend in case there are issues with SQL Server or the servers, they address those. So this is kind of my concluding slide. At Innovia Consulting, we've done hundreds of Dynamics NAV upgrades, and here are a few of the things we've learned along the way. And I've mentioned these, but I just want to emphasize them. So the first thing is, it is very important that we make and follow a detailed upgrade checklist and make sure we don't miss anything when we do the live upgrade. Because you may have noticed there's a lot of steps, and that was just for one, if it was a one step, like from NAV 2015 to NAV 2018. If there's 3 steps, like NAV 5 to NAV 2009 to NAV 2013 to NAV 2017, we need to keep track of those and make sure we do them. I also mentioned we need to make sure we have enough time to complete the live upgrade. We need to plan for upgrade disaster recovery so that if there's a problem, we don't leave our customers stranded. We need to pay attention to the fine print in the upgrade instructions. If you look at the upgrade instructions, they are, if you print them off, they're 20 or 30 pages of instructions. We need to go through them almost paragraph by paragraph and make sure, does this apply to us? Did we do that? I didn't mention this, but if you're a developer that's doing a data upgrade for the first time, it's critical that you understand and create the appropriate upgrade code units. I'm not going to say more about them right now. That would be a topic for another webinar, but they are covered in the Microsoft upgrade instructions. I think the instructions are somewhat unclear, and it took me a while to understand them very clearly. And so I just want to emphasize that if you're doing the data upgrade for the first time, make sure you understand them. If you don't understand a certain point, then ask somebody who does. Another important point that I've learned along the way is to make backups at key points during the live upgrade. And what that allows us to do is if we run into an issue at a certain point during the live upgrade, I can go back. I don't have to start from the beginning. I can go back to that key point back up and restore that and repeat the step. And then the last point that I wanted to make is just the importance of testing. Just just test the upgrade thoroughly. It's important that the reseller test it. Go through their upgrade checklist. The application consultant checklist. Make sure that there's no major issues. But then also, it's important that the user goes through that testing, and then it's important to repeat those tests the weekend of the live upgrade to make sure that everything still is working. So at this point, I'm going to pause for any questions, and I think Angie's going to handle those questions. So I'll turn it over to Angie.
Thank you, Joseph. Yes, we do have a few questions. This one's a two-parter. Assuming there are no mods, what is the minimum amount of hours required to upgrade from NAV 2013 R2 to 2018?
Okay, so that assumption of no mods is a big assumption, but I will accept it for the moment. What I would say in answering that is, one of the strengths of Dynamics NAV is it's very easy to make modifications. And these modifications can involve such simple things as adding fields to a page, adding fields to a table, adding fields to a report, changing the way a report looks. But in this hypothetical, that we're assuming there's no modifications. Now the second part is, are there any add-ons? And so add-ons, if you have, Lanham eShip or EDI or ChargeLogix or Avalara, that also adds some time. So for this initial response, I'm going to assume that there are no add-ons. So what we would need to do is we would still need to do a test upgrade. And so here it's important, we're assuming it's from NAV 2013. So that's telling me that they've already converted forms to pages. They've done the role-tailored conversion of reports. So that has simplified things. And but we still need to do the test upgrade. We still need to go through the Innovia testing, and then we still want the customer to do their user acceptance testing, and then we do the live upgrade. Now, another variable that comes into play here is the number of companies and the size of the database. And so if there's just a couple of companies and the database is relatively small, then let's say 10 or 20 gigabytes or less, then it may go pretty quickly. But some of our customers have, it's surprised me when I first came across this, maybe 10 or 20 different companies. And maybe the database is 300 or 500 gigabytes, and just dealing with the size of the database sometimes is a challenge. So having said all that, what I would say on the, I mean, I haven't really thought this through. My sales team may jump on me for pulling a number, but I would say probably 8 to 16 hours would be the time that we would plan for Innovia to assist with that, assuming no modifications, a relatively small database, and no add-ons. And then if the and then it could be more if those are not there. So I think, did you say there are two parts to the question, Angie?
Yes, the other one is very similar. It's same type of question. What's the average minimum amount of hours required to upgrade from NAV 2017 to NAV 2018?
Is that assuming no modifications?
Correct.
Let me talk about that. Uh, so NAV with NAV 2017, Microsoft provided some new functionality that has the potential of greatly simplifying upgrades. And that functionality is called events. And so if the modifications are programmed as events, then they come over very easily from 2017 to 2018. So the question is, for doing an upgrade from 2017 to 2018, assuming no modifications, or if all of the modifications are done as events, how long would that take? And our goal is to drive that number down. And I haven't done an upgrade. I haven't personally done an upgrade and that like that recently, but I think that we could. I mean, our goal would be probably to get it down maybe to 2 to 4 hours, but I think probably we would still be probably 4 to 8 hours, or kind of, if there are no modifications and we don't run into anything during the test upgrade. I'm kind of pulling those numbers just based on my experience after I think about it for a while and say, oh, I forgot about this, or oh, we could do this faster. I might change that number, but that's my gut feeling right now.
Okay. And then we have a couple other ones. So what was your worst experience with an upgrade?
Oh, that's a great question. And I mean, I've been through, I'm guessing 15 or 20 upgrades between versions of NAV. And personally, and then I've also done maybe a dozen that are builds within a given version, or adding on an add-on within a given version. So I just went through a very complicated upgrade. This was a very large upgrade, about 300 gigabytes. And so when we did the test upgrade, we found that it was going to take too long to do the upgrade. And so we streamlined it. We figured out, okay, how do we make it faster? And figured out, okay, we can get this done in 24 hours. And so when I went to the live upgrade, everything was going along fine. And then about 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. Saturday morning, I ran into some issues and I worked on resolving them Saturday morning. And by Saturday afternoon, I found this is not, I'm going to have to back up. And this is where I mentioned the importance of the backups. I had to go back to a backup that I'd made at like 4 a.m. Saturday morning and start over. And I did that, started that like at 8 p.m. Saturday evening. And I had to then go through some steps very carefully to make sure I didn't run into the same problem. I was up all night Saturday night, Sunday morning, and I finally finished the test upgrade about at noon on Sunday, and then turned it over to our application consultant for testing, and then our end user for testing. I was exhausted by that point, and so when they ran into issues, I turned over the issues to another developer to handle those. But we did get through those. That client did go live, and at least keeping my fingers crossed, but it seems like we've gotten through the major issues. But that was an exhausting weekend, and that's one of the worst times that I've had. So I guess that would be the one that's kind of at the top of my mind anyway.
Okay, thank you. We do have one last question and just a couple minutes left. What should we test during the user acceptance testing phase of an upgrade?
Okay, so to an extent, that's a little bit different if it's an upgrade within a given version of NAV. It's just a build, a new build, compared to if you're going from one major version to another. But what I generally tell my end users is any mission critical things that you do in Dynamics NAV, you should do those in the test database and make sure that the results are what you expect them to be. So those could be processes like creating and posting a sales order or a purchase order, creating new customers, running month-end processes, things like that. So that's one set of things that you should test. Now, another thing that you should do, and we've started doing this as we do upgrades that involve Microsoft refactoring, and sometimes when we reprogram them, we reprogram them as events. And what we've started doing is going through all of those events and telling the user, okay, this is what the event does. We would like you to test that, make sure that that works in the new version. So those are a few things that I would mention. In addition, we at Innovia, we provide our customers with a checklist, and I would use that as a starting point. But I mean, your business better than we do, and so your key users should go through and make a list of what are the critical things that you do in Dynamics NAV? What are the critical things that your purchaser does or your sales order processor does, or each type of user, and make a list of those tasks and then do those in the live database. The more that you do that in the new version, in the test version, and identify issues during testing, the less stressful the go live will be. So I think that's, I guess, where I would leave that. And I'll pause for any other questions.
No, I think that's all, Joseph. Thank you very much for presenting and for all of that informative information. If anyone does have any additional questions and you'd like to contact us, feel free to do so. We'd be more than happy to speak to you one-on-one and what your upgrade concerns and issues are, so that way we can get a more accurate count on how long it will take for your upgrade. I just want to thank you all for attending and let you know that we do have upcoming webinars and events on our website. So we encourage you to visit our website and register for any of those. Tomorrow we have Novia Consulting's John Grant, who will be presenting on NAV reordering policies. He will be giving us an overview on that. And then we have our conference that will be coming up in April 18th and 19th, and that's going to be at the Chula Vista Resort and Conference Center in the Wisconsin Dells. So that is a free event for you to attend, and we'd love to meet you or see you again if you've attended in the past. We will have several ISVs presenting in the breakout sessions. So visit our website and register for our conference and check out all the different ISVs that will be presenting. Again, everyone, thank you for attending our webinar. Thank you, Joseph, for presenting. It was a lot of information, and I'm sure you could go on for a few more hours with upgrades, because there's just a lot of information that goes along with an upgrade. And we hope to see you all on one of our next webinars. So everyone, have a great day and happy spring.